All right, good evening everybody. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. This is .NET Conf Philippines 2022. It's a bit confusing for us because this is actually .NET Conf 2021, but we're holding it in January 2022. So we'll fix that. I'll try to fix that this year, and maybe have our .NET Conf earlier. In the well, later in this year, if it's going to be November, usually that they have that we have .NET Conf, or Microsoft comes out with .NET Conf. We are celebrating the release of .NET 6, which is kind of a big deal as well because it's the first LTS or long-term servicing patch of .NET. So a lot of people are going to be using this version of .NET for some time. So yeah, pretty exciting for everyone. And yeah, tonight we've got two speakers lined up to talk about to talk about things that you're passionate about in the .NET space. Um, with us going with us live tonight would be two gentlemen. One is from Iran, Mr. Mehran Davoudi, who's going to talk about architecting software using spaces in C sharp, and the other one is Mr. Ali Kolahdoozan from Malaysia, and he's going to talk about minimal APIs in .NET 6. But before we go on to their talks, let me just take this moment to thank of our friends who have who help us here and make this event possible. First up is PageUp. So PageUp is my employer. Disclosure. We develop software that makes hiring people easier, and I believe we're hiring in Manila. So if you're interested in exploring positions in our Manila team, please visit popcareers.pageuppeople.com. And of course, this event and this streaming will not be possible without the help of the .NET Foundation, .NETFoundation.org. It supports all the .NET user groups around the world. And if you, I mean, especially if you're watching the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the .NET Foundation YouTube channel. You will find a lot of content, not just from the Philippine .NET Users Group, but all sorts of users, .NET user groups around the world. So please subscribe to this channel. Also, if you want to catch all kinds of events again from other user groups around the world in all sorts of different time zones, we've got user groups from the US, we've got user groups from India, we've got user groups in Europe. Please join the .NET Virtual User Group meetup, .NET virtual user group on meetup.com, and you will find those events with a lot of different topics and a lot of great speakers from around the world. And finally, if you still haven't had the chance to join these different channels, feel free to follow, to join us in the FINUG Facebook group. The Follow us on the FINUG Twitter account, and yeah, also follow our meetup.com account, FINUG, and our LinkedIn company account. So lots of social media channels. I'm not sure if we should be adding Instagram or TikTok to that. I am. I don't think TikTok would be something I'd entertain anytime soon. All right. So that's that's it. So thank you very much to these organizations. Right. Tonight we have two speakers, and for our first speaker, again, he's a gentleman from Iran. He's a founder and CEO of a company called Milk Radar, and yeah, he also organizes the .NET community in Iran. He's from Tehran. Um, um, Join me in welcoming Mr. Mehran Davoudi. Hi, Mehran. Oh, you are on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, hi everybody. I'm very glad to be with you here today.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for agreeing to speak here tonight. And I think you have a really great topic to speak about, spaces in C#, and so I'm looking forward to that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm super excited to be with you today and talking about spaces and Pyramid of Doom, something
Mhm.
mysterious.
Yeah, the Pyramid of Doom. I saw your tweet about that yesterday, so I'm really intrigued on what the Pyramid of Doom would be. But yeah, all right. So I'll please present your screen. I'll leave you to your talk so we can begin.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm sharing my screen. Share screen and here it should go. Is it okay now? Can you see my
Yeah.
screen now?
Yep. All right.
Okay, great. So again, hi everybody. I'm Mehran. I'm from Iran, and I'm consulting companies as software architect. So my main profession in technical area is a software architect. I'm consulting companies with large-scale software development, and so startups with large-scale software development. And also, I'm CEO and co-founder of Milkradar, an Iranian startup that we are having it in about four years. And today I'm going to talk about spaces. Spaces is a terminology that I've created to make software architecture more understandable to people. So basically, we are going to talk about software architecture, but a specific part of it that I'm calling spaces. And also, I'm going to talk about all of those, some of those cool stuff added to C Sharp recently, and how those features are going to help us in development. So first of all, I'm going not to talk about spaces. I'm going to talk about something else, something that seems a little bit mysterious. Pyramid of Doom. Oh, that seems some scary, but some sort of scary, but not that scary. I'll talk about it. Pyramid of Doom is something that yeah, getting it gets on with some sort of famous in the developments, a doom that sounds like evil in the code. It's some sort of bad smell in the code, and I'm going to talk about what pyramid of doom is. In fact, it is not that scary. It's a funny thing, but I've made it to some I've made it a little bit scary in the slide, but it's not that scary. It's a funny thing. It's you are if you're a developer, I'm pretty sure that you have seen this in your code or other code bases. So if you have encountered a code like this with lots of ifs or lots of nested blocks, you would have been seeing these triangle here. The triangle that being appeared here is called pyramid of doom. But why pyramid of doom? Why this triangle is so evil? And what is evil in this? This is because most of the time that this triangle appear in your code, that's because your real code resides here. You know that the real code and the real action that the real thing that is going to happen within this code is here, and this is far from the beginning of the line. So I have lots of ifs in nested ifs and nested ifs and nested ifs. And finally, here I have the real logic that I want to implement. And this is bad because most of the time, this is the code I want to read. if I'm going to read this code days or years later, or another one is going to read my code, there would be lots of difficulties for him or her to understand the code because of all those these triangles here, because all those pyramid of doom here. So I'm going to start my presentation with some patterns that this triangle is happening in our code, and how the new features added to C Sharp after C Sharp 5 is going to help us to remove these triangle, remove this pyramid of thing. And to see what's how we could do this, let's do some coding. So let's go to the lovely Visual Studio here and see what could we do here. Okay, so I'm going to start with a program called Movie Lava. I've named this just like this. It's nine movie Java. It's my movie Lava, and it's going to present us how those cool C Sharp features help us to remove pyramid of doom. So I'm going to start with a hello world program, but as this is not a hello world, it is an old world. I'm going to start with this code as in a very bad form. So this is the old world. So hello the world, old world. And I'm going to talk about some conditions and situations that we're going to see a pyramid of doom in our code. So first of all, this is a method called guess if it's Jack. What it's going to do is to accept a movie character as an input and guess if this character is Captain Jack Sparrow, the famous Captain Jack Sparrow. So I'm going to guess if it is Jack. So I'm going to try to do some condition checking on this character as an input. And there are lots of ifs that I'm going to check on this. And you can see if I'm going to read all this. For example, I should check if character is not null. So if it is not null, it should be castable to human character. Let us see the movie character first. Movie character is something abstract. A movie character can be anything, but there is a human character. Those movie characters that are human, and there are some characters that are animal characters, and there are some characters that are fictional characters. So for human characters, we have prefix, first name, last name, gender, and maybe an actor would be play this character. For animal characters, we have not actor of first name or last name, we have just the title. And for fictional characters, we have just the title. So if I'm going to check if this character is Captain Jack Sparrow, I mean, it should be a human character. It should be castable to human character. So here I casted it to human character. So I can say, now I can check its prefix. If it is Captain, as you know, Captain Jack Sparrow really insists on its prefix name, Captain. And after that, I should check if the character's movie is not null, and then I can check if the character movie title contains Pirates of the Caribbean. And after that, I should check if the human character actor is not null, and then I can check if it is age is not null, and then I can check if it day is 58 as Johnny Depp's age for now, and let me read this to the end. If this is a famous character, so this character is a famous character, and if it is a famous character, I'm going to cast it to famous character. And you know the famous characters have some scars, have nominated for some scars. So I'm checking if this character, the famous character, has has nominated for some Oscars, and also as we all we know, and all we are sad for it. Johnny Depp has not won any Oscars, so I'm checking if it is not if he has not won any Oscar, but we know that he is in people's hearts. So I'm checking this condition and all those conditions. And finally, I'm checking if this famous actor movies has some movie titled Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And after all these condition checkings, I'm going to put this line, print this line from here is the only Captain Jack Sparrow. As you see here, we're a bunch of nested ifs together that created a very scary pyramid of doom here. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can see the pyramid that have been created and appeared here. I'm going to show you how the C# features can help us to remove all these, most of these indentation. Because of the indentation that we should respect, and the indentation help us and make our code more readable. We could not decide to remove the indentation, but with the new cool features added to C#, we could remove all these. For example, I'm going to remove these null checking. I'm going to use the new C# feature that added declaration pattern. So I'm going to see if the character is human character, just name it human character. No need to this line. And and after that, because the human character now has the prefix, I can say and human prefix equals captain. So I can remove this if too. Okay, and then I'm going to see if the character movie is not null and the movie title contains. I'm again removing this. I'm using the question mark here, and again the question mark here, and again if it is not, if something is not, I'm going to consider it as false. Again, I'm going to remove this line. I'm going to add the null reference, add the null checking here. So I'm just going to check the null checking here, and so I'm going to say if age is int. So I'm pretty sure it is age. So and I'm saying that if age is equal to 58. So I'm easily removing these lines of code too. So again, if it's famous factor, I'm going to declaration pattern here and removing these line too, and I'm going to add this line if it is possible because I know it is a famous actor and has the Oscars too. And again, I can add the other if here too. So I'm going to, if these are true, if this is okay, okay. And again, I'm going to remove this if too. And again, I can add this one here too, because it's nothing to do with this. There's no need to separate if for this. So I'm going to remove these two. And the final ones are this. So I'm going to add this condition here too. And I'm just checking the null here. And if something is null, consider it false. And that's okay. So something wrong here, something that can be any. Uh, uh-huh. If you check it out, let me do it step by step here. And okay, so as you see, there are lots of unused blocks here. I'm going to remove them. I'm going to remove this block, removing this block. This is additional here. I'm going to remove this block, and removing this block, and lots of here. So I'm going to extra blocks here. One here, there's an extra one here, there's an extra one here. Do it, and let me check it. This is extra here. There's a, there's one here, there's one here, there's no this one here too, and that's cool, and these are additional. Okay, let's reformat the code. You know that pyramid of doom that we had been for a while, it's much smaller now, and our code is getting much more readable now. So this way, we're seeing how the new features in C Sharp, especially pattern matching, help us to make our code more readable and more easy to read, and how it helped us to remove that huge pyramid of doom was there. So let me check from the comments here. No comments related to the code. That's cool. So okay, I'm pretty sure that I can do better. I can do better removing lots of these. For example, I can do. I think I can do. Check if it is. No, and let me add it here and let me check. Yes, I can now remove these lines to just a better one, and also I can, as I know, merge this if with outer if statement. This is cool feature that we just do. It's getting me, so it just merge two ifs together here. And also I can do this too, with this. I can continue merging ifs together to so I can have fewer ifs. I'm not going to continue it to the end, but I imagine you can see how this pattern matching and all is null checking features added to C Sharp can help us to remove that pyramid of doom that we had once in our code. Okay, so one pattern, one situation that happens in our code make the code to have pyramid of doom is nested ifs. So in the situation in the code here, you've seen how the nested ifs were the nested ifs have been created a pyramid of doom, and how we could resolve it with the features that added to C Sharp. The other thing is the using. You know that most of the time it is possible that you need to do something in your code that you need to have lots of disposable objects. When you're working with disposable objects, you need to dispose them, and the safest way to use them is to use using. And you know, for the using, if you are going to work with lots of disposable objects, you have to have some nested using. So, for example, if I'm doing something, for example, uh, I'm going to load characters, ratings from different websites. For example, I have a movie, I'm going to load characters from a website, I'm going to fetch the rating IMDb from a web service, I'm going to fetch the Rotten Tomatoes from the other web service, I'm going to fetch the rating Metacritic from the Metacritic website, and I'm going to do lots of things, and I'm going to read some data from my database, I'm going to read data from a XML file. So I'm going to have lots of nested usings together. So here we're going to I'm going to introduce a new feature that added to C Sharp at using statements. So we can have these usings, use simple using statement here. You know, from I think from C Sharp 8, it's being added from C Sharp 8. You if you add just a using statement at the front of your code, at the beginning of your code, it's let me check it. Yes, I can use simple using statement, and this is it. I'm just changing parameter. Okay, so I'm going to add this one, and I'm going to add this one using the simple one, and I'm going to use the simple one here, using the simple one here, and I'm just writing my code here, and I'm just using the simple one here. As you see, because of the new feature added to C Sharp, that we can have using statements, and a block is being created, and this variable will be disposed when we're going out of this block. It make our code much more readable, because all those pyramid of doom have been removed from our code. And this is how cool is the using statement helping us to remove that pyramid of doom from our code. Another beautiful thing added C Sharp, since C Sharp 5, is the way that they've been created, adding, doing things concurrently. So if you let us have a restaurant. Okay, you have a restaurant. There are some methods. For example, grab an egg, break an egg, grabbing the oil, boil the oil, cook egg on the oil. These are some methods that will take some time to do. For example, maybe 2 minutes for this, 1 minute for this, and we're going to cook. Okay, so if going to see the old restaurant, we're going to have some methods for this. For example, prepare bread and cheese. Prepare bread and cheese means we should cook a bread, and with that bread, we should get the bread out of oven, and then grab some cheese and put some cheese on the bread. These methods will take some time, you know. And I have another method to prepare the sunny side up. Grab an oil, grab an egg, and cook the sunny side up. So if I want to prepare orders, I want to prepare orders, 3 orders, 2 sunny side ups, and 1 bread and cheese. I will do them sequentially. So these jobs will be done sequentially, and it's horrible because it took a lot of time. If I want to do it in a fast way, if I want to have fast restaurant, I'm going to make these methods return tasks. And until C Sharp 4, if we want to synchronize all these tasks, we should use a continue with. So if I want to prepare bread and cheese, I should start cooking bread, then continuing with get bread out of oven, and then I can concurrently start grabbing cheese and opening the cheese, and waiting for all of these 2 methods to finalize their jobs, and then I can, when these 2 jobs are ready, I can use the results. So I have a bread, I have a cheese, I can put cheese on the bread and return the food that I'm going to have. So I have done this for sunny side up here too. And finally, my prepare orders would be something like this. You see, I have for this for making this continuation, I should do lots of nested continuations together. If you're familiar with JavaScript, you would see this a lot in JavaScript by, for example, then or done or defer objects that you're creating in JavaScript. So here, as you see, we already have pyramid of doom here too. The pyramid of doom have been created here, but with C Sharp 5 async feature, we can have this much more clear, because instead of lots of those continuations and nested continuations, we should use the wait keyword and the uh, await keyword here help us to make write much more clear and understandable and readable code here, using just a wait. And finally, our prepare orders is just a wait task when all prepare sunny side up, and prepare bread and cheese. That's great. Okay, let's read some of the comments. We can chain of responsibility design pattern. Yes, Mama does that.
Yes.
I think it's
There's
great.
this question. Yeah. About Microsoft itself encouraging the period of doom way. So, what could you say about this, Miran?
I don't think so. They continue with added to C sharp, and at the time of C sharp 4, we have to create pyramid of dooms because of the structure of continuing. But after we've added the await, and we could rewrite all of our code with await, but I'm pretty sure that there are still some situations that we cannot use await pattern instead of continuing.
Right. I hope that
Okay.
answers Amir Hussein's question.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So, going back to our presentation, we have been coding together, and now it's time to talk about spaces, which we haven't talked about yet. In fact, spaces or space terminology is something that I found quite useful from the architecture terminology. Not the software architecture, but the architecture about buildings, those architectures that are creating all those beautiful buildings. So I have lots of joyful talks with architects talking about how spaces help them to architect those beautiful buildings. So I'm going to talk about spaces. But before starting to talk about spaces, I'm going to talk about what a civil engineer or a construction engineer do while they're creating a building. And I'm going to emphasize the difference between construction engineer and a architect, an architect. So basically, construction engineers are building things, building the rooms, building the house, building the building, and their most concern is about walls. It's about how to create walls. They're creating walls. They're creating windows, doors. They're using all those materials to create ceilings and roofs and vice versa. So the main concern of the construction engineer is creating walls. They're creating walls to and in their world of view, a building is a series of walls. Is a house is a mixture of walls, windows, doors, and all those stuff in the house. But if you see, when a worker or a construction engineer is creating the wall, something is implicitly being created in the house. It is spaces. When you're creating walls, in fact, you're creating a bedroom, for example. Four walls created space. That space is meaningful for us as a bedroom, for example. So in the world of view of architects, they see spaces and they design spaces. In fact, when the walls are being created, implicitly the spaces are being made, and actually what a customer is buying is not walls. When a customer is going to buy a house, he's not going, oh, this is four walls here, and I can sleep at night between these walls. The object or the concept that they're seeing and conceiving, perceiving is spaces. So if a customer loves a house, he or she loves the spaces he found in the house. For example, he loves the bedroom as a space, as a cozy bedroom. It's a kitchen, it's a good kitchen, it's a handy kitchen. So the space are meaningful for customers. And that's because architects think about spaces more than the walls that are the reason and the cause that this space exists in the world. So I wanted to bring this up because this space terminology in the architecture, in the house architecture of buildings, uh, is really, really useful in architecting software. You know, there's a resemblance between these terminologies. For example, if you are concerned about the walls, you are some worker or construction engineer, you are concerned about the walls, you are concerned about the bricks that are creating those walls. You're putting bricks on together to creating the wall. Exactly, a developer works with lines of code. Those lines of code are just like bricks that the developer are putting together to create a software. And the developer concerns about the lines of code. You know, I want to create great lines of code and make it work. So, but if you know, these are wall-minded people. You know, they're concerned about creating walls or lines of code. But if you are an architect, you're going to think about spaces because you know spaces is an important thing. The customer will buy the spaces. People are feelings or have understandings about spaces. The spaces is the part that is meaningful for the build. So architects are not building walls, they're imagining what this space should look like. And just like the architects in software, if you're a software architect, you should create meaningful spaces. I know we are writing lines of code, but all those lines of code are creating some concept that we're calling them spaces. And so as software architect or a building architect, we're going to create spaces and we're going to design those spaces. So as a quote, I believe in this sentence here for design spaces. Consider X as the code which developer wants to write. If a developer wants to write a business about X, would he or she find just one space for X? This is the test that I'm using to check if a software architecture is in a good mode in terms of maintainability, not in terms of performance, not security. I'm just focusing on the software architecture patterns in terms of maintainability and reusability. So, as a metric, if a space is good enough, you should be able to easily name that space. You know, we are developers, and most of the time we are going to decide about naming a variable. So, as a developer, lots of times we're going to decide what would be a good variable name for this object or for this situation. Let's do this with, in terms of software building architecture, and I'm going to ask some questions from you, and I'm seeing the comments here. So yes, I'm going. Okay, I'm checking the comments here. I'm going to ask a question here, some simple questions, but I want you all to participate in the comments, and I would read them aloud. Thank you. I'm going to show some part of a house, okay, and I will ask you to name it. I will. I want you to ask. I want you to pick a name as a variable name for that space, okay. So the first space, what this space is. Can you see it? Yes. How do you name this space in the building? Is this a dining room? Is this a bathroom? Is this a toilet or what? If you can see this, I'm pretty sure that you will answer this with kitchen. Yes, I will name this variable. Yes, I would say the Goker A. I would say kitchen. Yes, exactly. I would name. I would pick a variable name for this kitchen as nice kitchen. As you see, I'm using camel case naming. Okay, so I'm going to show you another space, and I want you to guess what this space is again. Exactly. Again, Ali Bozdoran and Hussein Beiti would pick kitchen again. Yes, this is. I would name this variable Mehran kitchen. This is not my chicken, but I would like to. I wish to. So I'm the developer here. I'm the owner of this variable, and I would name it as Mehran kitchen. Okay, good naming. Next, I'm going to show you another space in the house. And what's this? Yes, it was embedded. Called the second kitchen, clean kitchen. Good naming. That's a brilliant name. And what is this space? How do you name this space? Yes, yes. Some of you would name this as a room, as a bedroom, and I would name it as a nice bedroom. Again, I would name the pick a variable name for the space called nice bedroom. And again, another space. How would you like this space? And I'm pretty sure you will pick room for these two. And I will call it Mehran bedroom. Again, it's not mine, but I wish to, and I'm the one responsible for picking the variable name, so it's Mehran bedroom uh, from now. Okay, the next one is a little bit challenging. How do you name this space? Can you see? Can you see? I would like to hear from you in the comments. Yes, can you see it again? Yes. It's a little bit challenging. You see, naming this space is a little bit challenging. I'm sure that you're struggling how to name it, but this is that famous moment, that very sad moment where that a developer would pick a name like new folder one, untitled one, temp X, because there's no suitable name for this space. People can't name it easily. It is doing a lot of things together. It's not a good space. If someone want to do X, cannot find a proper space for it. I don't know when I'm going to sleep. I should come here, or when I'm going to, for example, wash some dishes. Okay, another room, another space, and how do you name this space? Again, you should be struggling to how could you name this, and again that very famous moment and the bad moment and happens for a developer, and he or she should name this new folder two on title two object y whatever temp one temp two, and all those bad namings came into the code space because of the characteristic of the space. Okay, that's great. We have had some fun to naming those spaces. Let's name some spaces within the code now. That's more realistic for developers. I want you to guess the name of this method. How do you guess the name of this method is? Most of you would guess, it would be uh, uh, it would be sum or add. Sum or add would be a good name for this method. Okay. What about the next one? How do you name this method? This method returns x plus y and x multiply y, multiplication of x and y, and returns them as simultaneously. So how do you name this? You know, naming this variable is much more difficult because it's doing some different things in it. So maybe sums, some mults, multiply and sum, or some nasty name like that. And again, how do you call this method to? Guess the name of this method. This method is getting the movies and getting the foods and sending SMS to this one, hello there to this number, and it accepts X and Y, and I don't know why it should accept this. But how do you name this method? It's much more difficult. Why? Because the space that has been created in this method is not understandable. You cannot understand the space. There are lines of code, but you cannot understand the space is being created here. And yes, Hossein Beg is saying that it is a violation of SRP single responsibility principle. Yes, exactly. And again, for the next, guess the name of this class. How do you name this class name? Through the content, you can guess maybe the person or customer is a good name for this class. And again, two methods. we're going this in reverse. Now, consider we have the name of the object, we have the name of the space, for example, do object. There's a space in our house called the do object. Can you guess what it is doing? It's quite difficult to understand what do object will do and what is it going to do with O as object and X as integer. But if I have a get summary, get summary is accepting the book as input, you can guess what sort of code would be here, what would be written here. Okay, that's great. So with these examples, I'm trying to show how the spaces in the code can help us understanding the code better. Okay, that's great. So in this way, you see that naming is very, very good and important and very, very important metric. You could use to understand which if your code is in a well-defined state or not. If your names are good, your namings is good, it's possibly showing that your spaces is well defined in your code. Okay, again, let's do some coding together. I'm going to do some coding together very, very fast. I having a sample for spaces here. And this is the program here. So from the prompt of Doom here, we have done a lot here. It's not. It's going to some. I'm defining some zoo here. Yes, for a zoo, and in the zoo, I'm going to run the zoo. And in the zoo, there is a cat trainer that I'm going to train a cat with it. Okay, so I'm having animals, and the cat is inherited from animal. I have animal trainer, and animal trainer is accepting a generic parameter t animal. So an animal trainer can have a train method that accepting an animal, and then it has two methods in it. Be nice with animal and give some water to animal. Okay, so the cat trainer is inherited from the animal trainer, and I'm going to override the functionality. So I'm overriding the train. So I'm calling the base train method, and I'm going to train that cat with playing with balls. I'm going to play with ball with that cat, and that just would be great to train a cat. Okay, but consider we have another animal called fish, and a fish trainer is going to train the fish by playing lights for the fish. Okay, so it's okay so far, but what happens if someone, for example, if the trainer is going to, the trainer of fish is going to call the base train and then play with lights. And let's see what's happening in the train in the base class. In the train base class, we're going to be nice with animal, which is super cool. We're not going to train an animal without being nice to the animal. I shouldn't remove these at all. But we're going to give some water to the animal. Isn't it strange? We're going giving some water to fish, which lives in the water. So I don't want it to be cold. How can I do that? In this way, I would remove this line. But by removing this line, I'm also removing the be nice with animal. That's so cruel. We don't want it. We don't want the being nice with animal to be removed. What should I do? As a designer of animal trainer, me as a designer of animal trainer, didn't want to allow anyone to be able to remove being nice to animal. How could we do this? We're going to do that together. Okay. So I'm going to change this code a little bit. So I'm going to make this method for train animal, okay, and I'm going to create another method on train the animal, okay. animal, and that this is the virtual one. So this is the method people would override. I'm going to right here, and I'm going to call the on train method here. So, uh, so here I cannot override the train. I'm going to override the on train. Okay, and here again I'm going to override on train. So in this way, I did, and as you see, the train is not virtual anymore, so no one can override it. So there will be no animal trainer in the world that could override the being nice with the animal because of this space. There's some space. This space has some specification. This space here to here. Okay. So in this, whatever you write in this space, no one can override in their inheritance. But whatever you write here in this space, you're letting other people to override it. To remove it, for example, for train, I'm going to call the base train. For the fish, I'm going not to call it. And I am able to call it before my overriding logic or after the overriding logic, you know? In this way, I'm creating some spaces. Some spaces is here, space, some other space is here. For example, for space one, space two, and there are some space three here, okay? And after calling the onChain, for example, I want to add some raising some events or do some logging. We can use some space four. So in this way, I have been created some spaces in the code with specific specifications. If you want some code that no one can override, and you should do it before the training process is being started, you should use space three. You should if you need some code to non-removable code, and you should be proceed after the training process, you should put it space four, space one, space two. And as you see, I'm creating spaces and I can name those spaces because of the specifications. Okay, returning to my code, here to the presentation. And something really important, if you have not proper spaces in your code and your code are not well defined, people and developers start to create some unrelated spaces. Some, for example, I want to add a property for a person, but I cannot find a class called person, so I'm adding it somewhere else. And in this way, lots of redundancy in code should start to grow. I'm calling it growing redundancy. And growing redundancy is an architectural disease. If your architectural design has some problems, your spaces are not defined properly, it is highly possible that your code having symptoms of growing redundancy in your code. That's it. That's great. And that's great. I'm done. I'm really happy having you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer all of your questions. And after all, you can, this old presentation that you have seen is available in my weblog. So this presentation and the source code that you've seen are on my GitHub and on my blog. You can check them out.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I think there are some outstanding questions here, and one of the things that I did notice, I'm not sure if this was in from the YouTube channel or oh, I think it's from Facebook. So what is a space in terms of, is it a model? Is it an abstraction? Is it a, or is it something that's a little bit of both? How would you call it in, I mean, in terms of the usual I guess, terminology that some developers use.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. About the space, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the space is a terminology that it is not a, for example, framework or prescription. It's a terminology that help the architects see the code and see the architecture and revise the architecture.
Okay.
If you know this terminology, it helps you to pick better names. And if you cannot find a good name for some space, it make you think about maybe something is wrong with this code. So it's
Okay. Okay.
more about the terminology,
Yeah.
a mindset of the
Yeah.
architect.
Yeah. So I guess in that sense, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I guess in that sense, it's more about being able to give descriptive names to whatever the activity is or whatever the responsibility is that's being tackled in a particular part of the code.
Exactly, exactly. But in some situations, we're giving two descriptive name. We have to pick a two descriptive name for a variable, and that shows us something wrong. For example, if I'm going to name a variable, it's a room and kitchen and bedroom and bath. It possibly at that space relying with that variable.
Okay. All right. All right. That's totally fine. Okay. Are there other questions from the audience? Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a question in the Arabic. I could not read Arabic, unfortunately. This comment, I'm not sure what it is asking.
Yes, it's in Persian, and it says.
Oh,
Uh,
Persian. All right.
Yes, it is Persian, and it says, is it possible to return multiple values from a method? Uh, there are different ways to returning multiple values from a method, but the best way that is have been possible to the recent versions of C# is using tuples. You can use tuples to return multiple values from a
Mm-hmm.
method.
Mm-hmm.
As you see, in the method sum I was returning sum and multiplication from in a tuple.
All
Yes.
right. All right. Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience though? Um, let's
I,
give
I
them a
just
few moments.
wanted to add, yes, if there's no question, I forgot to mention some of the other cool features added to C Sharp and removing those parameter. So we
Mm-hmm.
could, here you see we have namespace here, defining
Mm-hmm.
namespace here. In the new version of C Sharp, we can use the remove these, and also we could
Yes.
use. Yes, remove the program class here. We have top level statements in C#9. So yes, that would be create to having such
Yeah.
such lines of code here in the newest version of C#.
Yeah, yeah, I was aware of that, and actually, we had a really good session, from I think it was from September of last year when we had Philip Ekberg, who's an MVP, Microsoft MVP, specializing in the C# language features. So he ran us through some of those really cool stuff, and I think later on, Ali will be taking us through another version of that, which is the minimal APIs, which is also
Exactly,
another way of reducing a lot of the brackets and a lot of the
exactly, exactly.
boilerplate code that we have for C#. Anyway,
Exactly. In fact, the C#9 top level statements is a prerequisite that made that happen, that we could
yeah.
do the minimal APIs that I'm super excited to see what Ali is talking about in the next session.
All right, all right. Yeah. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I guess thank you very much, Meran, for that talk. It was insightful, and it's really a good analysis of how to make our code more readable, how to make it easier to understand, with that concept of spaces. It's ultimately it's just to be able to let other developers and maybe yourself, 1 year after you write the code, you've forgotten everything about the context of what you've written. Make it easier for you to understand your code, and that's really really important for our software development. So thank you very much for that very insightful talk.
Exactly. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed having with you guys here together.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much. We'll say goodbye for now, but I guess you'll stay around
Yes, I'm here. I'm watching.
for Ali's sake. Okay, okay, all right. So let's say goodbye to Mehran for now, and we're going to prepare now for our next talk. But before we go to that, I guess time for me to take this time to thank our sponsor, basically the .NET Foundation. Thank you very much for allowing us to making this event possible, and for hosting this live stream for us. All right. Um, our next presentation, I say we should move on to our next presentation. So let me just organize my notes here. Right. He. I was not aware that he is also from Iran, but yeah. I guess taking off from that from that feature, the last part that Miran had talked about the minute the top level statements, the all the features the C sharp added to remove some of the annoying brackets that and levels and things that make our the boilerplate stuff that make the C sharp code more less readable. um, to talk about minimal APIs in .NET 6. He is a gentleman, a senior software architect and a technical lead. And he's based in Cyberjaya near Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, but apparently he's also Persian. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Ali Kolahdoozan. All right. All right.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening, Ali.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You ready for your
Yeah, yeah,
presentation?
yeah. I'm all prepared.
Okay. All right. Good. So
So,
I'll hand it over to you, and
okay,
yeah, please present
my
your screen.
my voice is clear.
Yes. Yes, I can hear it very well.
Okay. So, and what about this presentation?
Yeah. Please share your screen.
So, everything is clear. Can I start?
I don't get your presentation from. I think you haven't shared it yet on StreamYard.
Wait. I think I did it just now. Yeah. So, can you
There,
see?
yeah, there you go. All right, keep
Okay.
it
Okay.
in there. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll let you introduce yourself
Yes.
and
Yes.
and, and,
Yes.
and
Thank you
and
so
continue
much.
with your thought. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ali. All right.
Hello, everybody. What Mr. Mehran said in the last 5 minutes was a very nice introductory for my presentation, also. It seems in the next few years, we shouldn't write any code for C Sharp. Everything would be removed. So, the title of my speech also is about minimal APIs in .NET 6. So, it's all about .NET 6. Okay. .NET 6 released some months ago, and it seems it's the fastest .NET yet, which developed by Microsoft. It comes with so many new features and some performance enhancements, and also it is LTS version and would be supported for some years. Now I want to talk about minimal APIs. What does a minimal API mean? Just look at this picture. Try to remember it later, because I'm not going to talk about minimal APIs very soon. It would be done later. If you look at a proper API, and if you were familiar with .NET Core especially, you know about the concept of controller, stop-top, programs, infrastructure that you have to prepare, and domain. All of these things would go to a single file which calls program.cs, and then we can call it a minimal API. But as I said, it's just an introduction. Let's see what is happening in a minimal API and why Microsoft created something like that. It seems minimal APIs are the Microsoft solution for someone who have seen the same features in other frameworks. So this is not something that Microsoft just discovered. It is a simple API with minimal dependencies. What does this mean, and what other languages did? If you look at this, you notice that Express, Node.js already did it. A very simple block of code which handles a simple API for you. So it's already created by Express.js. Let's look at the next one, Python. Python also did the same thing long before. With some line of code, you can have a full API, and it is nice. Why? We will go through it a bit later. In this speech, I'm going to talk about minimal APIs, what we need to create a minimal API with Visual Studio. Then we create a new project. We will take a look at minimal API project structures, and then we will check and create all the verbs in a real example. Then we will look at the routing, and then we're gonna add Swagger into your API. Okay, let's see. What are the minimal APIs? If you are a C# developer, the options to create an API are limited, or we can say were a bit limited. Controller-based APIs have been the most common for a long time. If you look at this block of code, it looks familiar. You had repository, you had logger, mapper, so many things, and you have a full controller like this. For big projects, it's perfect. We need it. But there is a question. Was it bad, or is that bad? Why Microsoft created minimal APIs? Besides challenging with other platforms and other programming languages, why Microsoft created minimal APIs? So it is not bad. For larger APIs, and when we need advanced features, this old way is not bad. Actually, it is necessary. But if you need an API with low ceremony and high value, we can offer you a minimal API. Most common usages of minimal APIs, this is what I guess. Maybe you know more. First of all, it is great for microservices. Why? Because microservices are talking about maximum level of decoupling. So if you need to do something in a very small chunk, you can just create a simple minimal API, do the job, and call it a simple microservice. The second one-time use projects. It's too important. Sometimes, especially someone who works with data, talked about having a simple API to just massage the data, play with data, convert the data, and then throw the code out. Creating a big API like what we did before is a bit difficult for someone who wants to make something for a short time and just get the result and then forget the code forever. Minimal APIs is a good option for such that guys. The other usage is creating a prototype. Prototyping is so important. Sometimes you want to just create something very fast, connect a simple UI or something as a client to your API, check the whole concept, and then start a real project. Or we can say progressive enhancements. Sometimes you want to start with something very small and slowly make it bigger and bigger. For such that reasons, minimal APIs are very beneficial. If you look at this, we talk about all these details later, but can you believe me? This is a minimal API. Literally 3 lines of code, nothing more. With 3 lines of code, you can have a simple API. It does nothing. It just shows a simple hello world, but it is an API. So it seems Microsoft is trying to help us to create APIs without headache, without any problem, especially for someone who wants to use VS Code instead of Visual Studio. Creating minimal APIs are much easier than using a full API with all the dependencies and all the necessities that Microsoft create by Visual Studio or by a command inside VS Code. So if you look at this, by 3 lines of code, you can have a full API. It's so simple, but it's an API. One of the other usages is calling another API or another URL by minimal APIs. I can give you a very good example. Sometimes you have to send a message. So normally we get a URL from service providers and pass some parameters to that API to send a message, for example. By a simple minimal API, this one is get. Later on, we go for other things and all other verbs. So you can simply have an API which calls a URL and get the result like this. As you can see, it is not difficult and you shouldn't create a very big application to do this. Okay. Now we want to know what should we do to start a real minimal API? Because I'm not going to continue just showing you some PowerPoint presentations. We should do something real. Okay, first of all, at the 0 stage, download .NET 6 SDK and ASP.NET Core Runtime and install it on your PC. I'm sure most of you already did. In the second, if you didn't install Visual Studio 2022, install it and make sure that you already included this part by having a tick here. Choose this feature and item. After installing Visual Studio, slowly, okay, we need to have, this is not necessary, but it's not bad if you install Postman also on your PC. There is some other tools to call an API, but I'm going to use Postman. Okay, things are getting more real and more realistic. After opening the Visual Studio, let me tell you, we do all of these things in real scenario, but let me just explain. As the template, just look for API. So we need to create ASP.NET Core Web API project like this. Here, project name, whatever you want, the location. I'm sure you are all familiar with these things if you are a .NET developer. The only thing that to have minimal APIs, you shouldn't choose this item. Then it doesn't create any controller and all the dependencies for you. This is the only important thing. The rest is just choosing the version. I didn't want any authentication, and I didn't want to enable open API support. That's all. This is the only important part. Okay. If we create a real project, we would have some files inside the project. Okay, let's do it. Then we come back here and explain. Visual Studio, create new project, choose API, and I have one here also. Okay, ASP.NET Core Web API. I will call it bookstore, not bookshop, because I already have one bookshop. So I create bookstore. Then everything would be so new for all of us. Next, .NET 6. When we say long LTS means this, long-term support. No tick at all. Create. We will wait. Okay. Let me check if there is any comment. It seems no comment. Okay. Can someone tell me about my voice? Everything is okay?
Yeah, we can hear you well.
Okay. Okay, let's continue. In this project, we have a program.cs, which is the main one, and we're gonna talk about it later. App settings, which keeps some values and variables and configurations for you. We're gonna use this file also a bit later. In the properties, we have launch settings. You indicate that which port is your API port on localhost, profiles, and the other things. I think all the .NET developers are familiar with these things, but we're gonna use this file also a bit later. Okay, let's come back to our PowerPoint presentation. Okay, these two, actually this one, are the nugget packages that we need at first, but I'm going to add them a bit later. Let's have a look at program.cs, but before doing everything, let's run. Let's check if we have a real minimal API now or no. Yes, it's working. It is working. So we have a minimal API even now without doing anything. Now we come here. In minimal APIs also, we can have the get, post, put, and delete. Get can be anything to fetch the data for us. Post, normally we use post for inserting record or something to do with the server or database or whatever. Put, mostly used to updating, and delete, which is obvious. Let's have a look at routing in minimal APIs. In minimal APIs, this part is important in terms of routing. Let's have a look at the code. See, by calling this address, we can call the API. So if I run my code again, see, exactly the same name, same route. So if we want to have different type of actions, by having a simple string here, we can handle the routing like this. I took this screenshot, this picture from my old code. So you will see the same very soon. Then you will notice that, oh, for get all, I have this address. For get by ID, I have this route, which is very easy. We already started the demo. My demo is a simple CRUD to handle a small bookshop, or at least some information for a bookstore. To do that, let's do something with SQL Server also. Since I already have BookDB, I will create a new database. I want to do everything in front of your eyes. Bookstore. Okay, the database is created. I already prepared simple script. Okay, we'll show you the structure of the table. This is the table. Very simple. An ID, name, author, date of publish, ISBN, and language. That's all. Very easy. Now, let's start our CRUD here. First of all, let's remove the things that we do not need anymore. Okay, let me check the comments. No comment, it's okay. Let's come back. Okay, if you pay attention a bit more from now, since we don't have so much time, I already prepared everything, but I want to create them again. So see, outside of this scope, after application.run, I will paste this part. Okay, let's have some exceptions. It's okay. It's because of not to installing the dependencies from NuGet. No package is installed. No issue. It's okay. I will install. Which packages? First of all, this guy. Rows. Install. Okay. Then the second. I always follow this way. Then you can see everything. I won't explain a ready project and just run it, because this way is more understandable. Okay. I created the DB context, but I still have an issue. We will fix it later. If you want to have a clean minimal API, one of the good ways is this. I created a region for my DB context. So, like this, I can close that part and have a clean file. It is not happy, and we know why. We come back here, entities. I should copy from here and paste it here. Okay. Again, this one. Okay. But do not forget the region, like this. Okay. If you pay attention, the problem is solved because I created the entity also. Let's talk about this publish date. I have tried to use date only, and since my field type also is date, I wanted to use date only. But unfortunately, Entity Framework 6 doesn't support date only. There is some ways to solve the problem. There is some converters, but Microsoft still hasn't given us anything to use for date only type that introduced in new .NET versions. I mean C# versions. Doesn't matter. Okay. My entities and my DB context is ready. Do you remember I said in app setting, we can store some parameters or information? we can come here and see. Yes, connection string. So I copy this, come back here, and paste it here. This is my connection string. But the DB name should change. To not to have any mistake, I always try to copy and paste like this. Okay. App setting is done. Let's come back here. Close this region. Close this region. Okay. Now, we should look at the top of the file. Service containers. Let me copy with the region and come here. Okay. So now, this is the part that we inject our services into the pipeline. In .NET 5, we had to do it in startup.cs, which we called it middleware. In .NET 6, there is no middleware. Everything should be done in program.cs. But here we have only program.cs. So obviously we have to do it inside program.cs. So the DB context is ready and it is getting the connection string from my app setting. We close this region also. Let's remove these comments to make everything clean. Okay, we come here. We close this. Now, we should talk about all the verbs. First of all, get all. So let me copy this and come here. Okay, let me come back to the comments.
Yes, there's a few comments here, that a few questions that had come up. So
Okay.
yeah, Rebwar was talking about what about the other service configurations. I guess the things that you could find in startup the CS or something, or yeah, the similar
Actually,
app config. Yeah.
Actually, we have to do everything inside program.cs or write some extensions to do all the things. There is no proper way in minimal APIs to do these things because
Mm-hmm.
it's so simple. So if you have to inject so many services inside a simple minimal API, it's better not to use it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because one of the usages of minimal APIs is connecting it to Azure Functions. Azure Functions already handles everything for you.
Yeah.
So you just use that Azure function inside your minimal API with some changes or some other configuration. So if you are dealing with a lot of services and you have to inject so many different services into your minimal API, I think you should change your mind.
Yeah, you should write a
Yes,
standard web
exactly,
API project. All
exactly.
right. Right. That's a great answer. Next question here is yeah, is there a significant improvement in terms of performance when using a minimal
Uh,
API compared to others? Like, I guess not necessarily MVP, maybe against a standard web API project.
in general, .NET 6 has a significant performance improvement. And yes, because minimal APIs are a bit lighter, and it shouldn't be worried about so many services and other pipelines. Yeah, they are much
Mhm.
faster than, much faster than normal APIs, but depends on the situations and
Yeah.
depends on what we want to do.
Yeah, I guess coming from a little bit of experience with Azure functions, you know, what would limit you would be the lifetime of an Azure function,
Exactly.
uh, and the memory limits that you have for it. I know that I think Azure functions don't really have a big processor and memory allocations for it. It's not meant for that kind of use. So
Yes.
yeah, yeah. All right. That makes sense. Okay, and yeah, I guess related a bit to what we were saying. Another Ali is asking, what's the use case for the minimal APIs? And I suppose it's mostly for those or for those microservices, right?
See,
Mm-hmm.
minimal APIs are not so special. They are a very light, it's a API to just do the job, only
Mm-hmm.
do the job. So one of the things that refers to your experience is knowing that when to use minimal APIs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if you try to confuse yourself, or if you feeling lazy to just use a minimal API to not to deal with so many files or so many services or so many dependencies, you will feel regret in the future,
Yes.
because you should exactly know what you're gonna do and what is the result. Otherwise, you will end up having a very messy file, and you have to change it and convert it to a proper normal API. So it's better to know that what is the plan, what is the reason of using a minimal API, and then going for it.
Yeah. 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 I totally agree. All right. I think you still have some ways to go in your demo, so
Yeah,
let's
yeah, yeah.
continue with the talk, and then let's
Okay, okay.
we will address the other questions later.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We come back to our simplest uh, get method that brings us and returns us all the records that we have. But is there any record? I don't think so. We do not have any record. So let me find out from my older table. Yes, there is some. And who is the author? Let me close this. Yes. We only enter one row just to have something. It didn't copy properly. Okay, this one doesn't matter. And language, which is English. Okay, we have one row now. If I run the application now, it will show weather forecast again. So since I want to use everything, I come here and change it with my get all road, which is books. Okay. If everything was fine, I should see the expected result. Yes. See, it fetched all the rows, but we had only one row. And since I changed the configuration here, launch settings, it automatically opened this route. Okay, let's explain about map-get. If we want to create any action, because it is an equivalent for action methods in normal APIs, we have app, which is building here, then map-get, the route, which is a string, then the other part, which is an instantiation of my DB context, and then the body. That's all. So let's try the other one. I can't say this one is more complicated. This is another type of get. Again, map get, books, but it has a parameter ID. So you have seen how to handle parameters also. Then the ID, which should come here in the runtime. Again, or DB context, finding the row, and then passing the result like this. And if there was no record, not found. Okay, let me check my ID. Since it is auto increment, it was 1. Okay. But now our testing is a bit insufficient. I have to add one more record here. Otherwise, we cannot check get one, because we always have one. .NET. This one is just something. Okay. So now, if I run the code, I should get 2. Yes. By adding a parameter, I get just 1 row. So far, everything works fine. Let's copy another one from my older project, which is an insert. For insert again, map post. For get, we had map get. For post methods, map post, again, a string as the route. Then the object that we have to play with, DB context. This part is a simple add, which everybody knows if they use entity framework. Save changes, and it brings us back to the respected record after creating the record. Okay. For this one, let me run. Let me check the port, and I have to use Postman. So I replace this body and all the parameters, insert. See, not only the record is inserted, we have another kind of select method also from here. After creating, it brings the data back Let's check our database and see what happened. Okay, let me close this. Come here. Yes, the record is here. Okay, so as you can see, everything is very simple. It's not complicated at all. If we come here again, let's copy the update. Update also is the same. Map update, again, the road. Since we have to indicate that which row should be updated, we have an ID also here, then the object, and again, creating an object from our DB context. After that, we find the record at first. If it was null, means not found. But if it wasn't null, we change the values by our input values and then save change. That's all. Let's have a look at delete also. Delete also is very simple. For delete, map delete, again the road, again ID, because we should know which record should be deleted. We should find it at first, and the DB context. Then we find it, remove, and save change. That's all. It is not complicated at all. So simple. Let me copy my region also and paste it here. So see, everything is so clean and nice. If you look at my PowerPoint, we said we're gonna add Swagger also to our minimal API. How to add Swagger? If you want to add Swagger, first of all, add this NuGet package, which is offered by Microsoft, to your project like this. Accept. Now we should do some changes. I already did in my code, so I just copy from here exactly after create builder. I come here. This is the first part. Then here, after app build, come here like this, and this one. After my API, let me check. Yes, exactly before app.run. Okay. Can we test? Let's see. It should work. Let's see what is going to happen. This part is correct, but we need to change it to this port. Yeah. Yes. See, if I want to check my get all, yes. Swagger also is here. Swagger also added, very easy. I had a plan to talk about authentication also, but the issue is that it takes so much time. It's not easy because I have to inject JWT, and I have to do so many configurations. Adding Swagger, adding authentication is a bit difficult, but I have a plan to do it later. So, is there any other question?
Oops, I was on mute. All right.
Any
Yeah,
other
I
question?
think I think the interesting question left behind here is, um, if we're going to want to write test code for minimal APIs, is there a good way to do it, or what's a proper way to do it?
Actually, it's a bit the same. There is no difference in terms of writing code by something like BUnit or other tools that you have. You
Mm-hmm.
can easily write test also for your minimal APIs.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but since I am so active in LinkedIn, if they can't do it and it was difficult to them, just let me know. Then I will create another clip for them to explain how to write code for minimal APIs also.
Right.
Yeah,
Could
I have a plan
they?
to talk about
Mhm,
authentication in
mhm.
minimal APIs and testing to come to make everything more complete.
All right. Should they just be able to message you then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If they message me or mention me in a post, then because authentication is a bit time consuming, it's not difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Testing needs some tricks. So if they can't find out by themselves, I will help them by another clip. It's not
Okay.
that difficult. Yeah.
All right. All right. I guess the next question there is, how do they reach you?
As
How
I
can
said,
they?
as I said, I am always online in LinkedIn. So
Uh-huh.
by just sending me a message or mentioning me, I will answer them very fast.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is your. Is this the right LinkedIn?
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I guess anybody who has a question, further questions to that, can reach out via LinkedIn. All right.
Yes.
Um. Um. Yeah. Any other questions from our audience? I'd like to just give a shout out and ask anybody else. There was a comment here,
Hmm.
about yeah, the having huge lines of code in just one class, that was anyway. Yeah. Um, Rebwar says that he doesn't really like it this way. I think that yeah, there is certainly a point where you should decide to make a standard web API project, and split off the stuff, or the different endpoints, or the different calls into different files, into a traditional controller. What's your take on this, Ali?
Actually, first of all, no one is trying to force us to use this way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
This is not mandatory.
Okay.
So if we feel bad or we feel insecure or something like that about this way, there is no obligation. We can continue our old way. In the
Mm-hmm,
second, technologies and companies are challenging with each other.
mm-hmm,
As I have shown here, I can bet you Microsoft created minimal APIs because of these two or other languages.
Hmm.
I can say 50% of the reason
Yeah.
are all the competitors. So they want to compete with each other. So maybe, yeah, if you have a very big application, I am also not to use minimal API to develop a big CRM or ERP or
Hmm.
something like
Hmm.
that. But
Hmm.
let me give you a real example.
Okay.
A couple of days ago, we have to fetch some data from our application and pass it to other department.
Hmm.
We did it with a proper API since we started a very big application with so many layers and everything that we follow, like repository and all these things. But we only fetch the data and pass to the other department. The other department should only play with data and pass it back to us with some small changes. That department used a simple minimal API because they created something like an ETL by Excel. So they got the data from us, they passed it to Excel, they got the result and pass it back to us to show in the UI and the other things.
Hmm.
So we didn't have anything more. We didn't have any lawyer, any even authentication, anything, because the API is already authenticated at all level. So we only pass the data, they massage the data a little bit with a simple function, for example, and passed it back to us. That's all.
Hmm. Hmm.
So for that point, using a minimal API was a good choice.
Hmm.
Otherwise, we also don't do that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it might be a headache.
Yeah.
So, based on your experience, you should know what you are doing. Otherwise, as I said, it would be a big hassle for you later to come back and change it to something different.
Something more full scale, I
Yes,
guess. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, 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 in that sense. That is an interesting point because Ferdi Bellarmino has a question here. Um, is this something that's appropriate, I guess, to ask? Can we teach this to, say, college students? Is it is it appropriate to introduce them to the concept of minimal APIs and for teaching
I
programming?
I think yes. Because let
Hmm.
me give you an example.
Hmm.
If you want to teach, for example, how to use some even operators in C sharp, they need
Hmm.
an environment to fire the code. So with three line of code, you can simply create a very simple get method, and in the body they can try whatever they want and get the
Okay.
result.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no need to deal with a huge amount of files and so many layers
Yeah.
and so many other things. So yeah, why not?
Hmm. All right. All right. Thank you very much for that answer. Right. I'm looking for other questions from the audience, and would appreciate if anybody else has any questions, just put it in the chat. Any parting thoughts that you could share with us, Ali, about this, or any resources that you want to share, or yeah, should they just contact you if they have more questions?
If they have more questions, first of all, they can contact me anytime. And also, there is a book which is just released about
Mm-hmm.
.NET 6, not specifically minimal APIs. Maybe they won't find that much about minimal APIs in that book.
Mm-hmm.
But in that book, they can understand the real meaning of microservices, because when we say microservices, you should have a deep understanding about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Why we say macro, why we
Mm-hmm.
say service. So
Mm-hmm.
if they read this book, they would have a better understanding about all these things,
Mm-hmm.
about how to define their code in small chunks and keep
Yes.
everything 100% decoupled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why we love minimal APIs? Because it helps us to keep everything decoupled.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important for big teams and someone who wants to keep the code clean.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have the title of the book?
Yes, Pro microservices with .NET 6.
Okay. With .NET 6. I'm trying to look for a link so that we could share.
Let me find you and send you.
All right. All right.
Uh,
Oh, okay.
it is a yellow book from April.
It's from April. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. I
yes,
think I
yes.
I found an Amazon
Yes,
link
yes, 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 yes,
here.
yes.
I
This
think this
book,
is it. Pro
this book is
microservices. Net.
fantastic. Pro microservices in .NET 6. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's. I think this is it. I'll share my screen so that
Yeah.
people would see. So I
If you
think
can
it
show the cover
is.
of the book, then
I
it would
think
be,
this is it.
yeah.
Yeah, this is
Yes,
the book. Yeah.
exactly, exactly,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Okay, okay, got it.
I
Got
know
it.
the author of this book. I love
Uh-huh.
him.
Uh-huh.
And this book is fantastic. I do suggest everybody, even if you are not a .NET developer and you don't know anything about .NET, again, read this book, because
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't talk about only .NET. It does talk about Kubernetes, mass transit, microservices,
Mm-hmm.
eventual consistency, and so many other things.
Okay. It's a highly recommended book then.
Yep.
Yep. All right. It's cool. All right. Thank you so much for that. Any other party words for us, or any message for our audience?
Uh, I think I'm done. If there is
Mm-hmm.
any question, I'm ready to answer.
Yes. All right. So yeah, thank you very much. So I'm
You
just
are welcome.
resharing your LinkedIn link here, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
for
that's fine.
yeah for our audience, please feel free to reach out to Mr. Kolahdoozan Ali. All right.
Yes,
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you.
you
We
are
learned a
welcome.
lot. We learned a
Thank you
lot
so much.
tonight, and yeah, that was a really good session, showing us something that's a bit more practical in
Yep.
that sense. All right, so
Yes.
we'll say goodbye
Thank you so much,
shortly. All right,
everybody.
all
Thanks
right.
for
Thank.
attention.
Uh-huh.
Good night.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so that is it for our session tonight, and I hope that you've learned a lot from this session. There was a question earlier if this was recorded. Of course, you could use this same YouTube link. I think in 10 minutes or so, or even shorter. The replay would already be available for those who are interested in rewatching the points. There's a lot of good lessons out there that we have learned tonight. And again, just sharing for everybody who would like to follow us and find out about our future events. Please follow us in our Facebook page, our Twitter page. The meetup.com is the really important bit, because that's where we announce our next events. And even in LinkedIn, we have event announcements there. And we'd like, again, to thank our speakers, Mr. Mehran Davoudi and Mr. Ali Kolahdoozan. Uh, uh, um, I did not expect this to be a Filipino Persian .NET Conf, but that's what it turned out to be, and it was really great. And also like to thank all our audiences for their questions, for their comments, and for watching us tonight. So with that, I'm going to conclude this session. Please wait for our announcements for the next for the next event. Thank you very much to our sponsors, the .NET Foundation and PageUp, for making this event possible. Again, I'm John Lim Hap. I am the community manager for the Philippine .NET Users Group. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat. Mabuhay. That's it, and we'll see you next month. Thank you. Bye bye.